nothing like a dark night with a campfire inside of my bedroom, which is totally safe, to get the vibes going for a story. And by story, I mean a spooky, terrifying nightmare. Oh no! But the Halloween season is over. What could be so scary that I couldn't speak of it during the scariest time of the year? Our story begins 20 years ago. Well, I had to update this like the week after it happened to make it, like match with Thanksgiving. So 20 years and like literally a week ago. That day and every day before it, we lived in a world with no Nintendo DS. Yes, believe it or not, the Nintendo DS is 20 years old. It was revolutionary when it came out, and even after 20 long years, is still one of the best gaming devices on the market. The best, if you ask some people, myself included. There are too many amazing games on it to even get started on listing. So I'll get started on listing some of them. Mario, Pokemon, Animal Crossing, Advance Wars, Fire Emblem, Mega Man, Grand Theft Auto of all things, Castlevania, Sonic, Rhythm Heaven, Elite Beat Agents, Ace Attorney, Professor Layton, Scribblenauts, Shantae, the list goes on. Such a great piece of gaming hardware. Obviously, I left out the most important of the bunch, at least to sake for me, this video, this channel, the works. Look, I may love a lot of things about the DS, but I really love what the DS did for Kirby. There may only be 4 games starring the pink puffball, but they're all excellent in their own unique and distinct ways. And while there's an absolute ton to talk about for each and every one of these games on their own, I figured as a fun way to celebrate a big anniversary for my favorite gaming device of all time, which also has my favorite game of all time on it. I'm sure you already know which one that one is. Let's talk about the speedruns of the Nintendo DS Kirby games. Yes, you can tell by looking at the video link. There's a lot for me to say. Since I don't want to waste too much more of your time, who am I kidding? I love wasting time. Let's start with the DS Kirby that started it all. Out of every game that we're going over today, Canvas Curse feels, to me, the most DS. It was an early title for the thing, that makes sense, but when I think of the DS, I think of one-of-a-kind experiences you can't find anywhere else, and that certainly applies to speedrunning for Canvas Curse as well. Some staples of the series are here: fast movement, copy abilities, and of course, Kirby is here too. Say hi to Kirby, everyone! They will certainly hear you say hello, I sure hope. Anyway, despite how non-traditional it is, these things help Canvas Curse feel more Kirby. Like you have a head start if you'd been obsessively playing Kirby games for years. Not me, I would never do that. Who am I kidding? Of course I have. But the unique traits of an any % Canvas Curse speedrun seriously help it stand out. For starters, and something you'll see any experienced Canvas Curse runner abuse, is using loops to give Kirby a big boost of speed. By literally drawing a circle for Kirby to travel through, Kirby will enter a state of permanent dashing, as long as you keep on drawing a line for Kirby to travel on. This is very tricky to do, right? As the rainbow lines kind of tend to get caught up in each other and can make Kirby get stuck sometimes, but if you draw your circle large enough, the speed boost you get will generally work out and will always be insane. This is really helpful, especially as long-time Fluffle fans are gonna feel nostalgic hearing me say this one. Canvas Curse is the game where regular, normal Kirby is at its best. Abilities in this game aren't bad per se, with a small handful actually being really good. Really, all of them have something to do, except for, I don't know, Beam and Tornado. Beam has Waddle Do at least, and Tornado, Tornado's that old geezer wistfully thinking about the past and how absurdly strong they were in Kirby's Adventure. That's what old people think about, right? Anyway, aside from the loop boost trick, abilities being designed in a way that gives them absurd strengths and weaknesses is interesting to say the least. Something like Wheel has horrible airspeed and can only move horizontally. Burning can move up a little bit and has great airspeed, but doesn't last forever like, say, Wheel does, and things like Needle and Freeze are more balanced, having neither of the others' issues, but not being nearly as fast overall. The consistency, reliability, and you can't get rid of me no matter how hard you try. Ness of normal Kirby, you're not in a bad spot if you're stuck with it. Plus, you'll lose your ability after every level anyway. So, yeah, normal Kirby busted! Another thing helping Canvas Curse's case is how simple the levels are. You oftentimes hear this is a critique of games, and while I can agree with that to an extent, I think it works a lot better for Canvas Curse because so much of the fun comes from the control scheme. If you're a DS truther like me, you know that touch controls are really fun, and creating a control scheme around that makes for fun levels, as is. I would rather the levels be fun and mess with the controls instead of being up to snuff and less fun. Anyway, this may sound like I'm talking about casual play, and I am snobbish as I'm sure I sounded right there, but this applies even more to speedrunning, especially for an any percent. Part of what makes any percent so fun is learning precisely how to quickly get through levels. Sure, they're simple, but they still do put up a fight. Some levels have longer puzzles to solve that you need to stay on top of your game to clear. Some are action-packed obstacle courses that winning quickly comes down to getting a good rhythm and zooming ahead. And yes, some of them are water levels with Canvas Curse's control style, but these are made so much faster once you know about the loop boost trick. You go from getting hand cramps to really no cramps at all very fast. Just fast? That's just like a speedrun. Oh me, I am so clever. There are other aspects of the game, like the boss fights that are also really fun, but probably don't change very much in a speedrun setting. You want to go fast for all of these so that you're less likely to lose, and in a speedrun, I hope I don't need to explain what you need to do for a speed run. Still, I think these are really fun, and a nice break from the standard affairs of what the game offers otherwise. But that's just an any percent speedrun. What, you thought that's all I had in the old noggin up here to share? No, there are plenty of other speedruns for this game, and the most obvious would be 100%. This is a completely different beast compared to any percent, seeing as how you now have an absolute ton of collectibles you need to get. You also need to hit every switch, get every single medal, and spend them at the shop, clear all of the boss minigames on all 3 levels, get the medals from the goal game, beat the game with every single character, clear every time trial, and beat every line trial. It may not sound like a lot, especially in a game that lets you move as quickly as Canvas Curse, but once you sit down to do it, you realize, you know, this would actually be like really manageable and fun if not for the other playable characters thing. Dang. As far as collecting every medal goes, this process is pretty straightforward. More to the point, it's very forgiving since you have 5 chances to get anything you miss as far as the levels are concerned. On top of that, I didn't even mean for that one. Sorry. On top of that, the top screen, yeah, you wonder what I was laughing before, also shows you where medals are in relation to where you are, walls that block your path being included. I know walls don't exist and all that, but Canvas Curse does take place inside of paintings, aka not the real world, so, yeah, unfortunately, walls are actually allowed to exist in this game, so you need to find standard workarounds. Canvas Curse is a pretty well put together game, with little to no glitches being featured in its runs. That's not a bad thing, given the game is fun as it stands, but it does mean that you have to play it fair when collecting medals. I don't want to play fair. Like, I want to store up my momentum from doing circle loops and then clip through a wall or something. That sounds... Honestly, that sounds boss as heck, but still. The other playable characters also have their limitations, and notably none of them being able to use copy abilities, aside from the ones that they were kind of given at base, but as long as you don't miss the ability-forced medals, it shouldn't add too much in terms of time. A forgiving speedrun is nice, especially for one as long as Canvas Curse Hundo. I hear from a lot of people that they tend to struggle with the level 3 boss minigames, but in the 100% setting, they aren't so bad. Cart Run and Paint Panic are kind of self-explanatory here. You're playing it safe with these is actually faster than, of all things, playing fast, since mistakes are very costly. You miss some food in Cart Run, or you miss Drew in Paint Panic, genuinely could be the difference between sweet victory, yeah, and painful, painful loss. The other one, Block Attack, is also similar in how you would rather stay secure and win safely than playing fast, but playing fast is at its easiest here, as long as you know the angles to send Kirby at. I don't know what those angles are to send Kirby at. I'm pretty bad at this one. But hey, it's fun still, and that's what counts. I guess while we're going over everything that makes up a hundo speedrun, I could also go into a fairly niche category, one that's kinda not even true, the character solos. As hinted earlier, you can buy Meta Knight, Waddle Dee, Day-to-Day, and Waddle Doo for some reason at the shop and play through the entire game with them. Waddle Doo is based on Beam, which is, you know, not great, and Day-to-Day is super slow and super large, which makes him super easy to get hit with. Again, not great. Waddle Dee is fun though, being based on normal Kirby in a game where normal is fantastic and being faster. Yeah, that is a recipe for success. Yes, I would say so. But the real star of the show here is Meta Knight, who sacrifices health for insane speed and overall offense. No joke, he's much faster than Kirby, and clearing the game as him, for many, is more fun than doing it with Kirby. I'm kind of inclined to agree here, as in love with Kirby in this game as I am. I don't know, even in an unofficial of a forum as you can get, Meta Nightmare is just fun. Similar to Meta Nightmare, I wouldn't recommend this for beginners at all. If you've died even once with Kirby in Canvas Curse, you're gonna suffer here. Oh, but it's only 1 point of HP that he loses. How bad can it be? Suffer. Fun as Meta Knight, and the game as a whole is, the stars of the show here are the time trials and the line trials. For every single non-boss level in the game, as well as some bonus stages for a few of the abilities, you're challenged to clear a time trial and a line trial. The time trial is simple enough. Zoom me through part of the level as fast as the game times you. In a hundo speedrun, you may find this kind of redundant, since you're already doing that as it is. Isn't this making an already bloated and long speedrun even more bloated and long of a speedrun? Well, that's kind of a mini pants way to look at it, especially since you're just going through bits of a level and not the full thing. Don't be a mini pants. In the standard context of running these courses, either as ILs, or individual levels, or in a clear all of these time trials setting though, oh, peak gaming here. I've said this so many times throughout my years of doing YouTube, but IGT, in-game time, is the savior of speedruns. Many people don't understand the point of speedrunning, or just tracking your time, if it isn't a metric the game judges you by. But when the game pulls up a timer and says, hey, we're timing you here, here's your best time documented for whoever you want to say it to say, and they do that with the insane amount of accents that I just pulled out, all of which are stereotypical and wrong. Suddenly, the fight is on. Tension builds, your muscles tensing as you try and clutch that new fastest run of a Kirby Canvas Curse time trial. And your loop circle gets Kirby stuck and you lose your new PB run! Dang it! But it gets even better than this. The line trials, I think, are the best speedruns that Canvas Curse has to offer. Unfortunately, it doesn't track your time like the time trials do. Instead, it just tracks how much ink you use when you're drawing lines. Use less ink, earn more points, earn more medals. Yuppers! You are rewarded with medals for doing well for the line trials as well as the time trials. So you need to make sure that your gameplay is on point. Tension builds, your muscle... And look, I'm not trying to diss time trials here. It has IGT, therefore it's goated. But really, this all boils down to just playing fast. For the reasons I've already explained, it's a total blast. But for line trials, can't you just play it really conservatively with your ink and make sure you don't go over the limit? Well, for casual play, that's true, but not only something political joke, but remember, we're talking about speedrunning here. Instead of going fast while going fast, it's going fast while not using too much ink. Here's the real magic. No, not Magic Kirby. Not in this game. That joke was actually way too easy. Moving on. You start with any given amount of ink. We'll just say 100% to keep it simple. In all instances, if you go under about 50%, you'll lose a medal. But if you're over 50%, you get all 3. So if you use enough ink to be at, we'll say 75%, 3 medals. 60%, all medals. 55%, all medals. 51%, Bazooki, all medals. You are still given some resources to go fast, and experienced runners who route this kind of thing will use as much ink as they possibly can to save all of the time that they possibly can while still getting the max rewards from it. It is a true, genuine work of art showcasing the beauty and unique style of Canvas Curse speedrunning. I have a lot of gushing to do about all of the games that we're talking about today, but Canvas Curse will always be the most unique, the most standout, the most DS. In this case, I wouldn't necessarily say it's the best. There is just insane competition coming from the DS Kirby's, but this has so much content that you're bound to find a category that you like. I think time trials and line trials are definitely the most fun, and by far the most accessible if you're looking to grind ILs, but a good any percent run, that can't hurt. And hey, if you have a Wii U, even running any percent Meta Knight style, that could be super easy thanks to using the save states to reload before you start a run. Look, say whatever you want about the Wii U, I really like it, and it was coded for the DS games. Except for Superstar Ultra, of course, but... Before we move on to the next game, I just wanted to ask you all for a quick favor. I promise, I always say I'll make this quick, I'll make it quick this time. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please, I ask, it would make me very happy if you did. Give the video a like, also leave a comment, maybe you could talk to me about what your favorite DS Kirby game is. And if you are subscribed, well, I mean, do all those things anyway, but also maybe double check. YouTube is quite the platform. People that think they're subscribed just aren't sometimes. I would really appreciate any of the support if you could share the video around, anything like that. And yes, we're done. Next game, that's gotta be a record time for me. Now, when this video started and I was gushing about how amazing that Kirby, the DS, and Kirby on the DS are, I'm sure some of you groaned. And not for 3 of the games that we're talking about today, but... yeah, Squeak Squad, kind of the ugly duckling here. A game that, according to many, it doesn't really do anything different from the others and has a rancid case of the, I am boring, phew. And to these people, I say, lighten up a bit, but also that Squeak Squad is a fun game. Far from my favorite, but here's a little something funny. When you change the topic from your regular standard Squick Squid playthrough to speedrunning, yeah, Squeak Squad suddenly becomes one of my favorites. Unlike the other games that we're talking about today, unfortunately this one is a bit dry on modes that aren't any percent. Obviously, there's Hundo, which we will talk about, but otherwise, I don't know, I guess there's the boss endurance, but there's not that many runs of it available, even compared to a game like Amazing Mirror. The extra mode is pretty interesting here, where the game times you, using the savior of speedruns, IGT, as you try and get all of the treasure chests, but I suppose too many people find it to just be exactly like Hundo to really care about it. The medal percent is hype, and I talked about it in a recent video that I think you should go watch, but since I talked about it so recently, I'd just be wasting time. And watch time, you could be watching 2 of my videos now, holy guacamole, talking about it again. Otherwise, there is, I don't know, Speed Eaters. It's not really a category or a run or like anything really, but I think it's kind of funny imagining someone running this, being on world record pace, and then losing it to like, I don't know, unlucky bomb jaws. To me, it sounds funny anyway. But, okay, the real action for speedrunning Squeak Squad comes in with the any percent and Hundo speedruns. So we'll start with any percent since, you know, it's the baseline for how the entire game is gonna be run. It wouldn't make sense to start with anything else. Anyway, medal percent is, it's true that compared to the other games on this list, Squeak Squad is by far the most standard. You run around with Kirby, jumping, floating, and copying, abilitying your way through dozens of levels selectable on a world map as you get from the start of the game to the end credits. In this case, as quickly as you can. Good start. Kirby, however, has a lot of things that set them apart from the rest in Squeak Squad. And notably, this is the first game where slide kicking, the crouching and attacking while on the ground, is the fastest way for regular Kirby to move around. This is something that more modern games like Forgotten Land and Return to Lux have in spades. But back before even Superstar Ultra was a thing, Squeak Squad had a pretty insane slide kick. Honestly, I'd say this was the best one in the series until Forgotten Land came out. It is really good. But what makes it so good? A couple of things, actually. First of all, crouching in general is incredible in Squeak Squad. If you don't have an ability, you're just gonna wanna be crouching so that you can do a slide kick for all of the reasons that we're inevitably gonna be talking about. And not only that, but Squeak Squad has this really cool mechanic called crouch canceling. Basically, if you get hit while you're crouching, it completely cancels out hit stun and all of its effects while still retaining the short period where Kirby is invincible to all external forces of the world. Minus bottomless pits. Oops. One of the things that gets completely negated by this is, I don't know, losing your ability? I'm not joking here. The crouch canceling is insanely good. And since you're crouching anyway, hey, why not slide kick? Genius. Second, most, if not all, Kirby games before this had a slide kick that went pretty good distance-wise, but had a lot of end lag on them. The slide kicking was good for, say, keeping your momentum off of a ledge, especially in a game with strong physics like Adventure. But that was about it, you know? In Squeak Squad, you can use this really cool mechanic called momentum canceling. Basically, if you come across a ledge, do a slide kick, and while you're sliding off of the ledge, initiate a float, realistically done by holding up, Kirby will keep that momentum and shoot crazy horizontal distances. I'm not kidding when I tell you there are times where runners will use this even if they have a wheel. And if you know anything about Squeak Squad and how good wheel is here, you know that's a compliment. And if you don't know, oh boy, get hyped. Third, yes, there's another reason. I mentioned earlier that slide kicks used to go long distances, but took a long time. In Squeak Squad, since so much was similar compared to the older games, I guess the devs decided they wanted to change up something randomly, and they made the slide kick exactly the opposite. It doesn't travel quite as far, but it ends way sooner, making it significantly better for long stretches. You do this by using the really cool mechanic called, slide kicking. Sorry, I got nothing for this one. But still, because of speed, momentum, and other mechanics, slide kicking is fantastic for speedrunning in Squeak Squad. This became the norm much later on, but in 2006, trust me, this was nothing like we had ever seen before. Of course, this isn't NCA, or no copy abilities, even that sounds like really, really fun for Squeak Squad. This is any %, where you beat the game ASAP by any means necessary. And if you know, you know. And if you don't, any means necessary in this case means you use wheel. The wheel in Squeak Squad is, well, I'm sure the footage is doing a lot of the talking for me, but Squeak Squad wheel very may well be the single best ability in any Kirby game. I know it sounds like a gag upgrade that you would get in Forgotten Land when I say it like that, but trust me, it's absurd. For starters here, we need to talk about the ratio of how much a Kirby game's levels take up compared to boss fights. I'm not going to pretend Wheel is a master boss killer in this game. It's not bad, but far from the best. That said, bosses only take up, I don't know, like a few minutes at best. But there are also workarounds for those, which we'll kind of get into later. The levels, meanwhile, take up, and I did the math here, only going by how many levels there are compared to the bosses, though, not how long they take. Sorry, I'm only one pup here. Take up about 80% of what Squeak Squad has to offer. And remember, we're talking any percent here, so none of the extra levels even count. The numbers look even better for Wheel when we go hundo. So what makes Wheel the best for levels then? Isn't Tornado completely invincible? Or High Jump really good for moving up? Or Sword is super epic, I promise, Claire, you just gotta give it a chance. Wheel is all three of those things, all packed into one. Again, concerning levels, there's just nothing that can stop Wheel. It has complete invincibility while moving forward, and it just crushes every enemy in its path, and, unlike Amazing Mirror, it doesn't lag the game every time it comes in contact with a stray pixel. Smooth sailing start to finish, and while that's just an expression, Wheel can also move over water, so yes, it can literally sail too. I told you, it does everything. But it being High Jump sounds kinda sussy, right? High Jump can jump high. How is an ability that's sole function being be good vertically? Well, Squeak Squad is a weird game with weird mechanics, and one of them involves keeping vertical momentum when using certain attacks. I'm not enough of an expert here to really say which attacks get this boost specifically, but I am a person with eyes, so when I pick Wheel and I do the super jump and see the crazy distance it can go, yeah, I immediately understand why it's so good. How far up you go depends on a few factors. How long you hold the button, when you start, Wheel's vroom vroom, and whether or not you turn around in the air. Yes, that gives you more distance. Wheel is busted. It may sound like a lot to wrap around your head, but I actually think this part of Wheel is very beginner friendly. I recommend trying it out if you have a sudden urge to play Squeak Squad. And as for the sword comparison, look, I can hold an L and admit that sword here is good in this game, actually. It deals with boss fights pretty safely and reliably, while still actually being fast, good for sword, and other killer abilities. I'm keeping that one in, I actually thought that was funny. Like hammer and cutter are a lot of fun too. I didn't talk much about the boss endurance, but if you are comfortable using more Tassie strats, you actually have a decent amount of options after you beat Miss Molly. The hammer is way too bad for Mecha Kracko, and while sword is actually pretty okay in that fight, I like cutter for the rest of the boss endurance the most, although it kinda depends. The sword is very reliable in a fight like Meta Knight, while cutter makes something like Bobo way faster. I'm not gonna tell you who that is, by the way. But, right, Wheel, sorry about that. The one thing that makes it super good is another unique feature of Squeak Squad, something which I really wouldn't mind seeing in another Kirby game again. Mechanically, I mean. I don't think I literally need to see the inside of Kirby's stomach or anything. Squeak Squad allows you to carry up to 5 items in Kirby's stomach, and while this gets a lot more involved in hundo, for any percent, you're kinda free to carry around Wheel Bubbles and invincibility candies for the whole ride. Oh, right, I forgot, the candies. Yeah, you can mix for them and make most, if not all, bosses an absolute joke. You don't even need to get rid of Wheel for it. It's, yeah, I know, it looks really good for Wheel in this game. About the only knock I have against Wheel is that it literally can't do everything, which is why it's not quite as good in hundo. Don't get me wrong, Wheel will still carry you in your speedrunner butt from start to finish in ways you would never expect. However, it does need some help. Lots of abilities get to show off here, with Cutter being my favorite, because of course it is, but it's also because of the variety of abilities showcased all around, while still having Wheel do insane Wheel things that we all know and love that it can do. This is why hundo is my favorite Squeak Squad speedrun out of all of them. Well, okay, maybe it's metal percent, but like, you know what I mean. And while I can, and will, talk about how great hundo is, I will actually largely refer you to this excellent guide made by Kirby runner Aiden on how all of the nooks and crannies of hundo work. It is the perfect guide for a perfect category. Anyway, one really fun thing about hundo is that you get to move through the EX stages. Yeah, I like them a lot. They're more Kirby after all. As far as what sets them apart, not much. I feel like these in the stage 5s really could have been swapped, but hey, I didn't make the game. I'm just making a video about it. aside from that, and of course wheel dominance, the ability variety here, like I said before, is still super fun. The hammer, for example, can break blocks and decimate grounded bosses even faster than Candy can. The cutter can solve some unique puzzles while really decimating bosses once upgraded, regardless of whether or not they're in the air or on the ground. As good as wheel is for high jumping, high jump, that could still be remarkably good for moving up and damaging airborne bosses. Your fire has movement, utility, and strength against bosses going for it. And no surprise, it's fire. This thing is almost always good. And yes, well, it's only good for bosses, even I gotta admit. Getting a bunch of sword swings in and timing it with the crouch cancel to stay aggressive versus bosses. Yeah, it's really cool. You win this round, Sword. Oh, you win this round. With an inkling of an idea of how this speedrun works, I think it's safe to say that Squeak Squad is a really cool game with really cool mechanics that we'd either never see again or it would come back full force to define speedrunning for years after the fact. I think in a magical, ethereal sense, Squeak Squad is a very unique speed game, one that shines on its own compared to other games in the series or even other any percent speedruns. So much is here that sets it apart, and I really like everything on offer here. So if you're in the mood to play Kirby Squeak Squad, give any percent a chance. It's... Oh my god, wait a minute. We can move on to the next game now, right? It's time for the next game. Well, I love Squeak Squad speedruns and all that, but like, come on, hurry up with the do transition. Like, hurry up already. Come on! Ah! It's finally time. If you know pretty much anything about me, it is an absolute given that my favorite game on the DS and my favorite game and thinking is Superstar Ultra. And as a speed game, oh boy, let me tell you, it's a delight. Not only is every single category an absolute blast to run, and not only do they all have their own little tricks that set them apart from each other, and not only do some of these differ drastically depending on what kind of speedrunning you're doing, you're playing Superstar Ultra. The game is so good and based and all that jazz, but also, well, I don't want to get too ahead of myself. So let's begin with the basics. Any percent for this game, commonly referred to as Beat Revenge of the King, or RTK if you're lazy, is a speedrun you never expect what you gotta do for. You need to beat Revenge of the King. Whoa! To beat Revenge of the King, you need to finish all of the basic modes. Spring Breeze, Gourmet Race, Dynablade, Great Cave Offensive, Good Ol' Romka, Revenge of Mennonite, and Milky Way Wishes. Then it's a safe, comfortable, hardest part of the run romp through ROTK, and you've got yourself an any percent. While ability variety is far greater in Hundo, any percent largely only sticks to one ability. I like it this way. A simpler category like any percent requires less thorough knowledge. Most Kirby should be that way, although it means absolutely nothing if the main ability that you're going to be using isn't fun. And the good news here is that Superstar Ultra has one of the most fun, and while I've always liked it, speedrunning has truly made me champion Jet. I'll fight on this hill. Jet is a fantastic ability that's a total blast to use, one that rewards practice and skill while still being good for someone who's, just playing for the sillies. And as much of a tryhard as I can be, we all know I am a silly. Some modes, thankfully, have a lot of carryover across categories. No matter what you do, you can't really change what goes into completing, say, Spring Breeze or Gourmet Race. The time trials for the latter aren't required for a full hundo run, cool as they are, and the former quite literally has no difference between any percent and 100%. Even more complex modes like Romka and Dynablade only have minor differences, if any. This isn't to say any percent as a whole is the exact same thing as Hundo. These are two very different categories in every mode beyond these four, but having some carryover, yeah, is kind of nice. But enough about me completely derailing from Jet. Something English major is upset. I can't stick to one thesis because I'm so excited to talk chaos as you. Let's talk about Jet. It doesn't have a lot of moves per se, but it has everything it needs to succeed. A really fast dash attack that works even better in the air, a charge attack that makes Jet go zoomy, and a command grab to make super quick work of bosses. This is KSSU here easily, the command grabs at their best, easy. Even its default undashed, uncharged zoom, while not incredible, can get the job done if need be. As you would hope for an ability focused on going fast, you know, with Jet literally being the name and all. But I want to focus on the command grab because while you'd certainly expect for Jet to be fast, you wouldn't really expect it to be strong. But it's really strong. One of the most powerful for boss fights in the whole game. For quick damage, you can't go wrong with the full Jet charge. If you attack while going big zoomy, you'll actually do an attack where Kirby makes some boom booms to deal damage. This damage is really strong, but the idea is that it's only strong because you have to charge it. Turns out when you don't have to charge it for very long, it doesn't really matter. There's also the fully charged command grab, which, okay, I don't actually know what they were thinking here, but it's really, really strong, able to one-shot bosses like Dynablade and the Combo King. The true fun of Jet involves moving around, especially in the air. Get Kirby running and leap into the air, time your B button presses, and see them soar through the skies like nothing else. Jet's not the only fast ability in this game, but it is the only one that can consistently go at speeds like this. Having a dash attack that you can use multiple times in the air this quickly really helps. Something like Parasol has a great dash attack in the air, but it can only be used once per jump. Wing has a great one too that can be used multiple times in the air, but you stop for a little bit every time after using it. Wheel, or at the very least Wheelie Rider, can move at insane speeds, but you can't dash attack in the air. You can't dash attack at all, guys. Jet is literally, in this case, quite built different. As fun as Jet is, of course, it's only as fun as the levels you need to traverse through. And don't get me wrong, I love these levels, and in any percent setting, I think things really come alive when you factor in the changes for 100%. Comparatively, you're searching for all of the treasures in Great Cave, every ability pedestal, or copy essence, whatever, in Milky Way Wishes, and, you know, there's still 4 game modes ahead of you after you beat ROTK. With these changes, even though Jet is still carrying you on its back, you find a lot more abilities that can find niche uses, like Parasol, go figure, Fire, Wing, outside of Gourmet Race, Cutter, okay, Cutter is actually used at any percent too, but hush, Hammer, and even Wheelie Rider if we're including helpers. There is a really healthy variety here, and I dig that a lot. But again, to stop the derailing on these levels that I love so much, these are really fun to blast through. One example I always think of to showcase why I think Hundo is so cool is Hot Beat from Milky Way Wishes. This is a level that starts with, go figure, Jet, but things get fascinating when you get to this little puzzle here that leads you to the Fire Essence. See, you normally need to get in here, preferably without taking any damage, but Jet just lamaus its way through while taking said damage. But its reward for getting through is to immediately be replaced by Wing as it travels up vertical spaces faster than Jet thanks to this nifty thing called Condor Head Cancel. The details are more fit for a video actually about Wing itself, but you can look at the footage for some epic Wing action. Some ewa, if you will. Ewa. Anyway, now that you're reminded of how white I am, entering this door gets you fire. You'd think that, since Jet is the best, it's right back to the action with it, but nope. When you enter this door, there's a candy waiting right in front of you, an item that makes you invincible. Almost like it's invincibility candy or something, wowee. But in Ultra, it also gives you and your attacks a crazy boost of momentum. With this momentum boost, Jet is, prayer minds here, actually slower than Fire. One look at the footage and you'll see, oh man, does Fire actually go crazy here. It really makes me wonder how much slower Fire is than Jet normally, given how much faster it seriously is right here. Yo, but once the candy runs out and you're at the next ability essence, You use Wing for an easy unlock of the next ability. It's so cool. There's examples of this everywhere. Your Plasma is used to solve some puzzles in the old tower for Great Cave. You actually die in the old tower to save time in Great Cave. Jet is used instead of Wheelie Rider to save time for a puzzle that was genuinely built exclusively for the Wheelie Rider in Great Cave. Alright, for a not Great Cave example, Copy is used to save time in the mini-boss gauntlet for the True Arena. Bonkers and Hammer are currently the meta for Helper to Hero and True Arena, but if people start feeling tassy enough, that could change to Stone. Heck, it could even be Wheelie Rider if 2-player is ever allowed. The Milky Way Wishes is genuinely just a treat for random abilities like Parasol, go figure. Candy's not an ability, but since it's on the roulette wheel, you get to mix for it and save time, which, I mean, you also do in any percent, but not in Milky Way. Whatever, I'm just saying this game is seriously the coolest. I hear you. You really love KSSU. You love speedrunning. You love listening to me yap about it. You maybe even some combination of all of them. But you just don't know if you're ready for the almighty awe of KSSU. And I get that. But here's the thing. What is any percent, and Hundo for that matter, made of? Individual pieces that fit snugly together to create some excellent categories. So why not remove some of those pieces and play them on their own? This is where ILs, or individual levels, come in. And for a game like KSSU, these are an absolute godsend. The fun of speedrunning the game without the pressure of a full game run? You can even practice something like ability solos this way. My favorite way, genuinely, to play Spring Breeze is getting to the famous I'ma blow myself up Poppy Brew is get a mix and just randomly time when I end it, so I just get a random ability, speed through Spring Breeze with it, and have fun. Not even with the intent to play the rest of the game, too. Just get a 2 to 4 minute spurt of fun and move on. Since I talked a bunch about Great Cave without going too in-depth, let's use that as an example. The Great Cave run itself is a total blast. Lots of tricky puzzles and movements to get cool time saves, some of the wildest strats in the game, and aside from the first 2 boss fights, is totally RNG free. Maybe some smaller stuff that doesn't really cost any time, or at the very least, not a lot, has RNG maybe, but the only real checks involve Fatty Puffer and the computer virus, both of which aren't awful unless you're gunning for a world record, or something similar. And I'm not sure if you've heard, but if you attack the computer virus from the left side, your chances to go first really improve. I'm legally obligated to tell you that this isn't true. Another reason why we need to abolish the law. I know it sounds like I was setting up a punchline, but there is no punchline. Abolish the law! Anyway, Great Cave Hundo is such a blast because every single treasure is set up in a way where, however tricky, you never really need to worry about not moving. Opening the chest? Yeah, I guess you stop for that. You need a little bit of downtime, but otherwise, it's moving, moving, moving. And to get some of these chests in really creative ways, to give myself the tiniest ounce of a break when it comes to editing though, I am gonna let the footage largely explain itself on this one. There's a really rad one that I like in the old tower that involves mixing for hammer or stone and then getting fire after pounding a steak that I really like, but honestly, you could pick so many of these and I'd say, yes, oh my god, yes, yeah, you see, oh my god, that's so cool, yeah! As far as actual ILs go, the most popular would have to be either Gourmet Race or Meta Nightmare Ultra. And that makes sense to me. They both time you with IGT, in-game time, to, remind all of you that are dozing off in the back because we're such a long ways into the video. We still have a long ways to go, but the former focuses on smaller bursts of speed with levels designed to be sped through versus Meta Nightmare Ultra being a truncated replay of the main modes from the OG Superstar that carried over to Ultra. Routing and strategizing for both of these is a really fun process, totally unique from the rest of the game, and it really shows how unique every run can be. For example, in Gourmet Race Course 3, the time trials, I used Parasol, go figure, and my PB time, possibly the world record time for the ability outside of tasks, is 36 seconds 79 ms. The world record with Wing is around a mid-35, so yeah, I'm patting myself on the back with this one. Unfortunately, I kind of ran out of time when making this video, plus this is kind of a couple topics that I want to be a video of their own in the future, but I at least wanted to bring up the boss rushes too. All of Helper to Hero, the Arena, and the True Arena are fun romps against the game's boss fights, both Super and Ultra. There are some really cool strats for each, and if anything I've said in this video has piqued your interest at all, or if you're looking at the footage and going, wow, I highly encourage you to look up either Arena of the regular and true variety on speedrun.com. Or if you're brave enough, you can attempt hunting for ability solos. Woohoo! Or you can look up the insane Helper to Hero world record runs for every ability. Again, the strats here, totally nuts. So if it isn't clear enough, yes, Kirby Superstar Ultra is a very fun speed game. I don't feel the need to recap everything or really anything I said because I yapped a lot, but on the bright side, I have one final meme category for you all. And it's very simple too. You clear green greens, not even Spring Breeze as a whole, just green greens, and unlock Dynablade. In Dynablade 1, you mix for Suplex, trust me here, and zoom through the rest of the level. At the end, when you come across a bomber, grab it, and as you're about to touch the ground, hit the A button and... bam! Crash percent. You make it a category on speedrun.com, you cowards! I won't lie, the one issue I have with going in chronological order is that we don't end with Superstar Ultra. Not only would it be the perfect ending, wait, the perfect game and y'all. Yeah, I really can't contain my love for it, sorry about that, except I'm not sorry at all. But also because it kind of makes it come across that I think Mass Attack is lesser because of it. And that's not the case at all. Mass Attack is a fantastic game with some really fun, albeit long, speedruns to go along with it. So what makes Mass Attack stand out as an any % speed game? It's got a fascinating control scheme, which does take some time to get used to, but is very rewarding for those that do. First and foremost, as obvious as this may sound, running is a big deal in this game. Not that Kirby's walk speed is terrible per se, but... Actually, no, I take that back. You can't stop me. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take it back. I'm taking it back. I'm doing it. Kirby's run speed is just way, way faster. And in a regular Kirby game, it would be as simple as just holding a direction on the D-pad or analog stick or, I don't know, your DK bongos and keeping up your run. But this is Mass Attack, so you need to double tap the screen and hold the stylus in place on the screen so the Kirbys don't slow down. It's not that hard to get used to, and for what it's worth, none of them have a heart, and I certainly wouldn't be able to run on my own if I didn't have one of those cinematic parallels. Anyway, to sound less morbid, it may also sound like I'm making a mountain out of a molehill here, but remember, this is a touchscreen-based game. Everything is done with the touchscreen, so there's a genuine craft to keeping the Kirbys moving as quickly as their little stubby legs, shoe things, can carry them, all while flicking them where they need to go. Oh, and you'll want to flick them. Have you seen how slow the floating thing is? It's, really slow. Sure, sometimes you just gotta, but deep down, you know you've got a severe case of the flickies. In particular, when you only have one Kirby, you should never be doing that floating. You just flick the Kirby where they need to go and let them book it ASAP. Again, since everything is done with the touchscreen, controlling it all in a speedrun setting is genuinely fascinating, especially as you add on more Kirbys. It's a shame that they all have to die at the end of a given world all the time, but that's life. That was messed up, I'm sorry. So this sounds all well and good, but I'm sure everyone who's played Mass Attack in the past, all three of you, are wondering the same thing. How can this game be a good speed game when you have to collect every single rainbow medal? Doesn't that ruin variety or make the run too long or make it too similar to Hundo? And while each of these critiques are fair, well, maybe not the last one, Hundo was like 2 hours longer than any percent or something, yikes, I still think it's a really fun time. Personally, I actually think this change makes any percent a bit more interesting. And maybe not quite as in-depth as, say, Planet Robobot or Forgotten Land, where you can pick and choose which collectibles you need to get compared to just having to get them all, but therein lies the genius of it all. In a KMA, any percent run, you don't need to get all of the medals, just the rainbow medals. And yes, there is one of them in every stage, but they're still hidden just like any other collectible in a game with collectibles. How do you route in a way that makes getting all of these fast? And how do you make sure you can get through these challenges, and just those challenges, i.e. you're not getting any of the other medals that aren't rainbow because the LGBT is based, as quickly as possible? The idea going into every level is interesting, but the exacts are going to be different, especially because the levels in Mass Attack, they're really varied, and good, and fun, and detailed. Did I mention they were good and fun? Well, I sure hope I did. And well, okay, a good chunk of coming up with creative ways to go fast is to ignore as many of the enemies as you can and just let Kirby run. I still find enjoyment in that because, well, moving in this game is fun. The fighting enemies that you can't skip, good time. Just barely avoiding an attack from an enemy, great time. Mass Attack in general, it's just really fun. And admittedly, as much as I'm hyping it up, I'm sure those of you who watched my Kirby Month speedrun rankings, all three of you, remember me placing this one fairly low. And yeah, I'd still rank it at that spot, but it's just because Kirby Speedrun set a really high bar. It's a great time, and it's long, I promise. But you also know the pattern at this point. We're not just talking about any percents here. One look at the length for a hundo run on SRC, it's like 5.5 hours, may turn you away from playing Mass Attack for the rest of time, but don't listen to that hogwash. Pfft, yeah, facts and logic, who cares about those? Yes, doing a 100% run of Mass Attack, it's very, very long. The game just has a lot to offer, but if you're up to the endurance test, I actually think it may be one of the better hundo Kirby speedruns out there. Is it more because I think Mass Attack is really fun more than anything? Yeah, duh, of course, but hey, you know what? If you like the game too, I think you'd agree with me. The two major differences that change everything between hundo and any percent are the non-rainbow medals and the achievements. The medals are simple enough to explain, all the fun of routing and zooming through the stages for just one rainbow medal, now with 2 to 4 more medals to get per level, to me, is just more of a good thing. I know Mass Attack has some pretty bad gotcha medals, ones that are kind of impossible to see coming if you're unpracticed or rusty or, I don't know, new to the game in general. For the sake of a speedrun though, I think having notes or something open, that kind of mitigates the problem altogether. I do that for plenty of games, even ones that I like less than Mass Attack. So if you think I'm going to pick on Mass Attack for it, do you watch my videos? I don't pick on like anything. Well, I guess except for Sword. Rick too, sometimes. I'm just gonna kill this gag now. But the biggest change are the achievements. Right off the bat, there's an achievement for getting gold stars for every level. To the poor soul wondering what the heck that makes this so hard, hold on to your innocence, but also you get gold stars by doing a damageless run of a level. Think of it like this. A Kirby dies, no star. A Kirby dies, but you resurrect them by punching them a bunch of times, bronze star. A Kirby gets brutally maimed, but survives to have some trauma left over, silver star. No Kirbys get hurt and everyone is happy, yay! Gold star. Yes, you need to do that for every single level in a speedrun. It's a highly daunting task, but as is the case with many speedruns, you'd actually be surprised at how much easier this can be specifically by speedrunning. Don't get me wrong, it's still brutal because late game Mass Attack is brutal, end of story. But with the tips and tricks you learn by playing, you know, avoid combat, flicky the Kirby, or flick the curb, take your pick, and run like the zoomies depend on it, among other things, and you'd be surprised at how many gold stars can actually be pretty simple. The achievements force you to change things up in other ways too. For example, one of the missions requires you to beat Day-to-Day with only one Kirby. Obviously, you want 10 Kirbys for just about everything, so how do you quickly get rid of 9 of them? The answer is very simple, actually. You just need to leave whatever world you're in, go to a different one, let the Scullies eat all of the other Kirbys, or whatever it is that they do, yum 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 yum, and then go back to Day-to-Day Resort. Bingo! One Kirby ready to do battle with Day-to-Day. Others, like not being picked up by the Scullies in the Scully key segments, show strong cases of being what the kids call an epic gamer. Others, like beating 50 bean bonds and being a bean bond basher, force you into some quick bouts of combat, a rarity in a game where going speedy means not fighting. Of course, if you just want to find the medals and not worry about the checklist, you can do that too. I'm not sure if that run's ever been done or how many differences there are, but a number of things would still be different. Day-to-day, as mentioned, suddenly becomes easier now that you have 10 Kirbys at your disposal. Probably the biggest game changer, though, would be avoiding the "you just got a new achievement" notification after you clear a stage that involves you getting an achievement. Now you're fighting bosses with 9 Kirbys and not 10, huh? Actually, interesting. Almost like this is a really rad-sounding category that needs to be explored more. Still not being finished with Mass Attack, we have 2 categories to talk about still. And they're both sub-games, wowza! First up, Survival Rush is Mass Attack's version of Squeak Squad's Boss Endurance, or Superstar Ultra's Arena. You're given little else aside from a bunch of Kirbys and a dream, tasked with beating every boss fight in the game. As always, this is really fun to blast through, but you may look at the list of bosses and wonder if they'd actually be fun to speed through. Lots of mini-bosses to pad out the small list of actual bosses, you know? I could maybe understand that, but Kirby boss rushes are at least just consistently fun. If this didn't have the rest areas like the other games do, I'd be kind of inclined to agree, but being able to pick and choose what kind of fights you want to do next, chosen by which of these differently colored doors you enter, adds a whole new brand of spice to it. And while that's certainly true casually, it's even more apparent in a speedrun setting where, you know, speed is the most important factor. How are you gonna route your runs? Which bosses give you the hardest time? All that jazz. Fourth-ish verse, same as the first. Kirby boss rushes are a highlight of any speedrun. But the best speedrun in all of Mass Attack, of course, has to come from the best part of Mass Attack, Kirby Brawl Ball. I've spent so many hours playing through Brawl Ball, and yet it wasn't until actually timing myself that I realized how consistently you can clear this quickly. My PB is far from world record territory, sitting just under like 15 minutes, but given I've spent over 2 hours in the past on one round of it, yeah, clearing it quickly, pretty impressive. But what do you even do in this category? Beat up Kirby with a pinball until Kirby beats up some other characters, including Heavy Lobster, Yeah, that's basically it. There's some pinball board shenanigans to deal with before Day-to-Day can open his mouth so that he can whack into the next boss fight. Very strange when I describe it that way, but the bulk of what you'll be doing is fighting bosses. Not quite a boss rush, except this mode does actually have a boss rush of its own, and I really like running that category through that too. Anyway, some bosses like Wispy are simple enough. Keep whacking at him while avoiding the gusts of wind and you're golden. Lolo and Lalala are also fairly simple, but Blocky getting in the way can cause some serious problems. Either that or you get lucky and get one of the 2 L's in the corner and bop them over and over. Marks and Heavy Lobster are really fun fights, both borrowing elements from the Superstar games and converting them to pinball in a really fun way. The former spreads attacks all over the screen constantly and has a bunch of health, but you can duplicate yourself and have a second Kirby help out on the offense. The latter is all about timing and precision, getting batches of good hits in on Heavy Lobster while it spills oil, hits your bumper, and turns invisible to avoid damage. Again, absolute blasts casually, but doing them quickly is a whole other story, one that I think is honestly even better. I don't know why Brawl Ball is as good as it is, but hey, it's a gem, and I'll take it. Mass Attack is a gem. You know what? No, the DS as a whole is such a gem even in 2024. If I wasn't such a Kirby truther, I could go on and on about this thing and all of the fantastic games that it has to offer. But for today, I'll leave it here. And For anyone crazy enough to watch this video through to the end, I want to remind you that you'll also find this linked in the description. I streamed Nintendo DS games for 14 and a half hours, and that was quite the hoot. A lot of the Kirby speedruns were there. Mass Attack sadly wasn't, but what are you gonna do? I did this to celebrate the Nintendo DS's 20th anniversary, and today I am talking about it to celebrate Thanksgiving. I don't think I brought that up, but this is a Thanksgiving video, so yeah. Remember, if you liked this video, please subscribe to the channel and give the video a like, leave a comment, and some such. If you want to be reminded of when I'm going to upload future videos because you thought this one was so epic, the best way to be reminded, like I said, is to subscribe, like the video, all that good stuff. YouTube will recommend you my videos even more if you do that stuff. If you want to go the extra mile, please consider becoming a Puptrin on Patreon or joining as a Mempup on YouTube. You get nifty perks, including early access to all future videos. Special thanks to my head-patting, Fluffle fan, Puptrins and Mempups, Freakish Uproar, Lydia Scribe, Nightfall, and Chris. I love you all! You should all be Nintendo DS games. That way I could love you even more! Yeah. Bye!